All right, next up we have Ryan Blaney from Team Penske. We'll go ahead and start right over there.
Hey Ryan, Davey Siegel with Front Stretch. Have you ever played golf the same day that you were gonna qualify for the Daytona 500?
Yeah, I think I played last year.
Okay.
So, yeah, you only got to make one lap tonight. So, it's good. You can limber you up for tonight for the hard work I got to do at 8 o'clock tonight. So,
Gotcha. Eric was in here. Eric Jones was in here earlier, and he was asked if you guys had talked or resolved anything, and he basically said you haven't reached out to him, so he assumes that it's resolved. Do you have anything to report on that front, and how do you feel about the situation a week or so removed?
no, I haven't talked to Eric. I don't really have anything to talk to him about. I'm over it. I don't know. It's funny. He thought I was supposed to apologize after I got fenced, but two people are going to think differently. And but no, I haven't talked to him. But I'm over it. It's in the past, and move on from it.
You were quickest on the speed charts last night. Does that give you any confidence going into Thursday and then to Sunday, or is it kind of non-transferable just because of the situation with the lack of inventory?
Yeah, it's kind of hard to look at speeds, I think, in practice. We just had a big draft in the second practice and put a big lap up there. But I kind of looked at, how our car drove in that little pack that we had, just a little 4-car, how it took a push, how it reacted, to get to someone else's bumper. Single car speed, I would have liked to have been a little bit quicker. But I thought I've always kind of put a bigger emphasis on, okay, how does my car handle in the draft? Can it take a big push? Because you're going to be getting bounced around out there all day. I mean, if your car can't take a push and it's unstable and, no one's going to want to push you if they see that. So we've always put a big emphasis on drivability of our race cars, and I thought I had that last night. So I'll get a better idea for it in the duels. But to an extent, you don't want to go out there and wreck your 500 car in the duels, so you want to see, it's a fine line of seeing what you got and what you need to maybe work on, but not putting yourself in a bad spot. But I liked our car last night, and we'll see how it kind of transfers over to tomorrow night.
All right, we'll go ahead and go over here.
Sean Clark of the Ridge Report. Ryan, last year you won the last race at Daytona, but you also exited the 500 on lap 14. So what's your mindset going into Sunday's race with such varied results last year?
Yeah, definitely very different results between the races here. It was no fun watching the end of the 500 last year on my couch at home. But coming to these tracks, you have to understand that sometimes you don't control your own destiny. I mean, and that's just what it is here, or Talladega, or any other speedway. The only thing that you can do is control the things that you and your team can control, and try to put yourself in the best spots to try to be there at the end of these things. So you never know how it's going to go. Like I said, I never planned on getting wiped out on lap 14. Someone makes a mistake, and then you find yourself in the middle of someone's mess, and your day is done. But then in the August race, we missed 2 or 3 of the big wrecks and put ourselves in a spot to win the race. So you never know how it's going to go. You just try to do your best job and your team's best job of staying in there all day, and you hope to find yourself still running at the end of these things, and you usually have a pretty good shot to win if you are still running at the end of, towards the end of these races.
All right, right over here.
Steve Schweitzer with the Lasco Press. Ryan, everybody in here before you has talked about the importance of keeping their car clean in the duel. Do you have a backup car with you here this weekend?
We have a couple for like the four of our cars. It is a tough thing. Our inventory is not very big currently. No one's is. It's been difficult to get parts and pieces, honestly, for the teams to kind of put full things together. I mean, we used to come down here with 1 or 2 backup cars for each team just in case things happen, and now we're sitting on a couple for your whole organization. So that's been difficult, and you have to have that in the back of your head, knowing, from practicing last night, okay, how hard do I push my teammate to kind of see what my car will do and what his car will do without possibly wrecking him. So, and in the duels tomorrow night, it's going to be the same thing. I feel like it's going to be I think guys are going to be pretty smart on kind of how they race. You would hope so, because everyone's kind of sitting in the same boat. But at the same time, you have teams that need to get into the 500 too, that are going to be racing pretty hard at the end of the duels to try to get in. So you just have to be aware and observant. But yeah, you don't ever want to wreck your 500 car, but let alone when we don't really have many things to spare. So.
All right, we'll go over here.
Dale McFadden, FrenchFitch.com. Two-part question, Ryan. First, how many times has "at the pump" been yelled at you over the last 2 weeks?
Yeah, more on social media. I got yelled. Someone yelled "at the pump" yesterday from the fan walk above the garage. So that was maybe they saved at the pump. I don't know. I hope they did. I know I am. Are you? So.
My second question is, like, how was that that commercial, like, pitched to you? And, like, when it comes to your marketing partners, like, what boxes do you have to check off for you to, like, agree to an idea in a way that you're comfortable with this being associated with Ryan Blaney?
Yeah, I mean, I thought that was a great idea and a great, partnership between Advanced Auto Parts and Shell and Pennzoil to kind of come up with that. I mean, you have all these amazing partners, a part of your organization, and why not combine them to, have these promotional things and promote not only their brands but the team as well and yourself, and help other people save money. So that was a great idea because I loved the tie-in it had between Advance and Shell, and a lot of honestly, if a sponsor comes to me with an idea on how to have a commercial or a spot or a social media thing on how to promote their company, I'm going to be all for it because I love that they support me, so I'm going to support them when I can as well. So I don't really say no if a partner has an idea on kind of if a spot they want, but I always just try to help them out as much because on the back end they help us out so much. I mean, it's not taking too much time out of my day to go film a little something for their company, but that was a good spot. That was one of the better ones I did, really, the Advance and Shell, and that was a pretty funny one, and it's a cool promotion they're doing, really.
All right, we're going to go to Holly and then back there.
Thanks. Ryan, do you consider yourself to be a race favorite when you come to the Daytona 500? You're good here, and your competitors consider you to be a race favorite anyway.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really ever think of, I don't sit around and be like, man, I'm a race favorite. But, you have confidence in yourself. It builds confidence when you are successful at, speedways or, we won the August race here. So you build confidence, and I think I have a decent idea of what to do to try to get to victory lane here. So I don't know. I mean, I think a lot of people can be favorites. I mean, a lot of teams and drivers have great opportunities to win this race. So, like I said, I just think you got to do the things you can to the best of your ability and try to put yourself in a really good spot. And you always see the same people usually up front at the end of these things. Denny's done a great job, and he's won 3 of these things, and Joey's a great plate racer, Brad. You always see kind of the same guys up at the front at the end of these things if they make it. And that's for a reason. It's because they're really smart at what they do, and they kind of understand it. And I've learned a lot from Joey and Brad, and I try to apply it, and it's worked out for us a little bit. But that's nice that they say I'm a race favorite, but just got to make it to the end, and anyone can be.
All right, we'll go to Taryn and then Edgar.
Taryn Walk with NASCAR.com. Speaking of confidence, you won at Daytona with Todd last year. How confident are you in the relationship you've already built with Jonathan so far?
It's been going really good. Jonathan has been a part of the Penske group for a long time, and I was really excited to see him get a crew chief role with the 21 the summer of last year, and he did a great job. And I, at that time I knew Todd was leaving or retiring, and kind of started figuring out who we wanted, and luckily it worked out that Jonathan wanted to do it, and that we get along really well. He and Todd have kind of the same demeanor and personality, and he and I have the same pretty much personality too. So it's been nice to get some testing in with Jonathan in the off season. It's just kind of learn each other and talk to each other on the radio and kind of see how we both go about things, and that just gives you such a better jump start to the season. But I'm looking forward to working with him. He's very smart, well deserving, and I'm lucky lucky to have him.
All right, we'll go to Edgar and then up here.
Ryan, yeah, Edgar Thompson with the Orlando Sentinel. Bubba's known as much for his diversity as his driving at this point. How do you think he's handled that, and do you think it would be fatiguing to be in his position?
I think he's handled it great. I've been very proud of the job that he's done, whether it's standing up for himself, standing up for the sport. When that deal happened a couple of years ago, the stand that he took behind it, and not shying away from it. I think he faced it head on, which was the right thing to do, in my opinion. And I look at his schedule and the things he does. I'd be exhausted if I was him. I mean, he's off doing all these kinds of things, which is great. It's fun for him. I'd be exhausted. I mean, he does so many things, and but it's really great, and it's grown the sport to a new level. So yes, it has to be exhausting on him, but I am proud of the job he's done of not just rolling over on these things and not wanting to do them. He's embraced them and been wanting to do these things because it not only helps him, but it helps the sport and it helps everyone around it. So it's been cool to watch that kind of grow.
All right, we'll come here to Mark and then Kelly.
Mark Garrow, PRN. Ryan, I'm working on a story for Atlanta. In that win last year in the first race, you feel, how does it make you feel? Does it make it you kind of grin outward or inward? You're like the cat burglar. You win a race at somebody, they'd already given it to somebody else, and you come in there and like a thief in the night and take it at the end. Is there some special satisfaction to that?
Yeah, it is. Especially when I rewatched the race and heard how much everyone was writing us off, like Gordon and Boyer, so yeah, it made me feel a lot better to win that race after I rewatched the commentary. But that race is special because Atlanta, it's such a hard racetrack, and you put in so much work there, and 500 miles is a long time around that place, and you're driving your tail off, and in that case, we were second best car most of the day, and we just kept working on it, getting a little better, and long run at the end, and we saved our stuff and was able to go up past 5 cars. So it does make it better when you continuously work on your car all day and just get a little bit better and able to run the dominant car of the day down on a long green flag run and pass them. I don't know about thief in the night, but it was. I guess you could call it that, but I don't think we stole one. We just did a good job of working our way up to compete with the best car, and we were the best car when it counted.
All right, we're going to go to Kelly, Jeff, and then Bruce.
Kelly, CrandallRacer.com. Ryan, going back to what you were talking about earlier about just the draft and everything. In practice yesterday, the Team Penske cars and Harrison, you guys were really aggressive. There was a lot of bump drafting going on at one point, the tandeming. Was that by design to figure out what you can do and how this car will handle going into Sunday? And does it feel any different than the Gen 6 car?
Yeah, that was, our plan was just to go out there in our 4 cars and just kind of go draft. And then, we just, got to see what our cars were capable of. Can you connect? Can you push? Or what do you have to do to lay back to get to the lead car to push them? So I think you have to learn all those things. I mean, you have to understand that stuff in those moments to kind of see what you need to work on or just what your car can do. And it is different from the Gen 6 car. I mean, it might look similar on TV or watching it, but in the draft, it feels way different. The lead car feels a lot different. It feels like you're draggier, harder to block runs. Your timing's off. I say that as your timing is going to be off from the driver and a spotter perspective on when you have to move up to get in a lane and block a lane. I feel like the runs come faster with this car than the previous car, so you have to make those decisions quicker than you would, and I feel like it's going to take drivers and spotters a little bit of time to get used to that. You have to understand that the rear bumpers of these cars have a lot more curve in them. They're not as flat. They're not nearly as flat as our other cars. You'd see the Gen 6 cars take huge shots in the rear bumper to get a lane going. You're not gonna be able to do that in this car. If you do, you're gonna wreck somebody. So that's going to be interesting to see how people approach that on making late blocks and not being able to take a shot in the bumper as hard as before, and these cars are going to get turned to the right easier. So learning all that stuff is really important, and we've learned that in the test and some practices, and you'll learn it in the duels and the 500. But it is a good bit different, and it takes everyone a little while to kind of get comfortable and just understand what the limits are.
Let's go ahead and go to Jeff.
Hey, what'd you think of Winnie Harlow wearing your shirt to the Super Bowl?
Yeah, a friend of mine sent that to me, and that was pretty cool. I thought she kind of made it her own crop top, tank top kind of thing. I think I don't think she knows who I am. She just liked the colors of the PPG shirt, so and I can't blame her. It's cool colors. So, but that was neat. It's one of those things that you see someone wearing it, whether it's an athlete, celebrity, if they wear your stuff, and you're like, that's cool. Like, it's something you'd never know. There was a Alabama basketball player that was wearing my shirt in warm-ups the other day. And you're like, that's so cool. Like, you'd never think, someone would be maybe a fan of you or just like your shirt, wear your shirt. But it's still cool to see. And it makes you feel good because it's like you would never think that they would, care about it. But you turn around and you see them wearing that stuff, and it makes you feel good as a driver, all that stuff.
All right, last question here to Bruce.
Linwood was telling me last night, not in terms of production piece parts, but race car parts. This is a stock cars they've had in the last 50 years. How do you feel about that? The fact that the parts are pretty much interchangeable, that you could take your part, run it with a Wood Brothers part, that you've got that flexibility.
Yeah, I have mixed feelings about that. Just as far as the mass production of these parts and pieces that all the teams are required to run. And I say that from a perspective of someone who has seen the amazing work that the engineers that we have at Penske who build these parts that we used to manufacture ourselves in-house. Incredible designs that they come up with of lighter pieces, different way it bolts on. We had a whole department of people doing that. That were incredibly talented men and women, and then we go machine shop it in the house and run it, and that's gone. All the talent of those people. That's a big part of that isn't used anymore. But on the other side of it, you'll have smaller teams that don't have that resource that will be running the same thing that the bigger teams run. So, and make them closer. So, but that's good for the sport. So, it's a weird mixture of emotions that I feel on that side. Of talented people not being able to do their jobs anymore like they used to be able to. But at the same time, it seems like it helps the sport as far as smaller teams being able to run what the bigger teams run. It's just a matter of getting all those parts and pieces from whoever's banking them in time. So
Thanks for joining
Cool.
us, Ryan.
Thank you.
Good luck this weekend.
Thanks.